What is up, wrestling fans? It's late. We are live. But, had we gone late after Double or Nothing, we'd still have a couple of hours to go before we could hit the air. There's one thing I really do like about the WWE pay-per-views right now. They're clean, they're quick, they're done. I'm not
This was the
complaining about.
midway point, Doug, last week. I'm pretty sure this is like the midway point of AEW's show last week.
Yeah, I think we have to go back and finish watching Double or Nothing after this review because it's still going on, I think.
Thank you, wrestling fans, for staying up late with us. As we have just stated, tonight we are live after the pay-per-view, if you're watching live, to talk Hell in a Cell. Doug, before we get into the wins and losses in the spoiler territory, just bottom line it for the fans out there. I'll do the same. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Overall, what do you think? Because it should be noted, this is a different kind of pay-per-view. We're going into it for the first time, no bloodline. And because we have a unified champion, this is the first time in a long time that I can remember that there was no male heavyweight title at stake.
So I got some really mixed feelings about this overall. I was thinking about this while watching it that I could say, yeah, okay, this is pretty much a episode of Raw that has a Hell in a Cell match. However, the Hell in a Cell match kind of saved the show for me. But overall, my hot take: watch the Hell in a Cell match and you're good, man.
So for me, I know I kind of said so in the online preview that, to me, AEW's show was a little uneven last week, a couple of clunkers, but some really high highs. Tonight, I thought was also kind of an uneven show in the fact, though, that unlike AEW's having a few clunkers, but then having some higher stakes, this was a little more maybe what you would expect. The things that should deliver did deliver. Nothing was outright a clunker. So uneven maybe for just very different reasons. I think AEW, where they do fewer shows of a pay-per-view nature, the expectations are always really high. This is probably meeting the expectations you had for it. If you thought Omos was going to tear the house down, you would have been disappointed. But if you thought the Omos match would go like you thought it would, maybe you had your expectations met. Overall, I'd say there's nothing to say to steer clear from completely if you have the time. But if you don't, for me, the opening match and the main event.
That's fair. There were some cheese spots in that opening match. All three of those girls can deliver, but there were just some like almost comedy spots.
Well, then, if we're going to go into the first match, let's tell the folks, if you didn't watch and you don't want spoilers, come back and finish watching our show when you're done. Doug, let's get into those spoilers and let's talk first match. It should be noted, WWE continuing the most recent tradition of no matches during the pre-show. So no added value in watching the pre-show until further notice, folks.
And you watched it again, hoping to catch a match, right? Just thinking something was going to happen.
Dude, I got like a Bible worth of notes, so I'm just doing
the pre-show.
I'm just doing my journalistic duty. Is the only reason I'm tuning in. But no, don't watch the pre-show. Start with the first match, which I liked. I think maybe more than Doug. But let's hear it, Doug. We got Bianca defending that Raw Women's Championship against Asuka and Becky Lynch.
So okay, right off the bat, I'm thinking this is like a match we're going to see in like 2072. It had this very cyberpunk vibe to it, right? Because Becky Lynch comes out and she has this Blade Runner look thing going on now. Anyway, then out comes Asuka. It just had this whole cyberpunk vibe, which I'm totally into, right? Bianca comes out, confused my 6-year-old. He's like, "Are there lips with a rattlesnake tail? What is going on?" Of course, this is the last 20 minutes of the pre-show. He's complaining, "Why are these people talking? When are they going to fight?"
He agrees with me about the pre-show.
But from there, that cool cyberpunk vibe. This one never really got out of second gear for me, man. My biggest complaint, whoever the producer or performer was who thought it would be a cool idea to have that Asuka go to that double ankle lock, and just I don't know if they had some coaching reactions there or what, but it just looked super cheesy. Suddenly I was watching a Santino Morella match.
going to have to disagree with you. I like the double ankle lock.
I thought it was the cheesiest thing all night, man.
I won't say everything went smoothly. And I'd also like to point out that for the folks who have been living under a rock, this would have been Naomi's match against Bianca Belair had it not been for the walkout of Naomi and Sasha. So this is sort of a plan B. Agree with Becky's look. That honestly, more and more to me, she's looking like a cartoon villain, like
her husband, who I said for at least a year now, he is some sort of anime villain.
So we got the couple that are going totally total comic book villains on us, which again, I'm all for that as well. I love the look. I liked Becky's use of Asuka as a weapon, pulling her off the top rope down onto Bianca. I like of course, I think that Becky has one of the best top rope leg drops in the business, showing that off again tonight. Bianca giving a little bit of a different look for her power suplex by doing the march. I like that. I did like the double ankle lock. I like the near falls at the end. I thought it was a great way to open, because it got the crowd hot. And it should be noted that Chicago was hot all night. We need to go see a show in Chicago. Right. I think everything probably gained a half a star to a star tonight, just because the crowd was invested in pretty much everything. Even the matches that didn't, in my mind, deliver, they were good for. But I like this opener, and the right person won. And we should have said that, that from the start, that Bianca is still your champion. And because of the way it went down, it still protects that Becky-Bianca match down the line. Maybe SummerSlam, Doug?
Probably.
So Asuka takes the pinfall. Also kind of predictable, but a good opener, which, leads us to match number 2, which we might agree on.
So after that first match, things kind of become a blur until the House of Purple showed up, and then the last match. But
House of Purple, I like that. Yeah, we got Lashley versus Omos and MVP, and hopefully this is the end of this feud. I guess is the best I could say about this. Is that this is the third straight premium live event where we've seen some Bobby Lashley Omos match, and it's a 2-on-1, which, as I think I've stated plenty of times on this show, I hate 2-on-1 handicap matches, because only in wrestling math does the underdog actually have the advantage and usually wins, which is exactly what happened tonight.
True to form.
Yeah, true to form. Despite MVP's best rapping abilities beforehand, he was not able to tilt the odds in his man's favor. Although Cedric Alexander made a reappearance, and that was kind of foreshadowed in a pre-match segment, which made you know he was getting involved. But he sort of tilted the tables to Bobby Lashley. I don't know. Obviously, there's not really a hurt business without Shelton Benjamin and MVP, but it looks like there might be, Doug, out of this at least an alliance again. Maybe Cedric has him a buddy, and that'll help Cedric out.
As long as Cedric doesn't intervene in any more of Bobby's matches.
True. There is an angle coming out of that between the two of them, and maybe that's where it goes. But hopefully it does go, because there's no reason to have a fourth one of these.
No, there was zero reason to have 3 of these. Hell, I would argue there was zero reason to have 1 of these, but here we are.
Here we are. Well, here we are going to the next match, Doug. KO versus Elias's brother, Ezekiel.
I love this angle, and I love KO.
Dude, first thing I have on my list of notes is I have been a fan of this as a mid-card angle. It's not trying to steal the show or be the main event, but just as a fun mid-card angle, I've enjoyed every minute of this too.
But yeah, I had the TV down because I had some other things going on at the time, so I was just watching with volume down. So, was there a stipulation or anything? Does Ezekiel have to admit that he is Elias since KO won? I mean, I don't know. Is that a thing, or is it just KO won?
Well, it's interesting because obviously this to me shows where WWE kind of positions Ezekiel. And that is as a mid-card guy, which is probably the right spot for Ezekiel. But, if they wanted to really go somewhere with the character, he would have picked up the win here, and he didn't. And there is no stipulation that he has to admit anything. I did love, though, that throughout the match, being the great heel that Kevin Owens is, it was a constant beatdown of like, admit you're Ezekiel. Look, this is Elias. Admit it, you're Elias. Until he was getting his tail kicked and he was on defense, and suddenly he was begging off like the coward, going, no, you're Ezekiel, which was just perfect, of course, because it is Kevin Owens. But KO does pick up the win after hitting a lot of his signature moves. Doug, where do you think Ezekiel goes from here, though? I mean, considering he needed to win.
I did have this theory after KO won, and it was a pretty decisive win there. So maybe Ezekiel goes underground for, I don't know, a few weeks, enough for Elias to grow the beard back out, and then Big Brother comes back for some comeuppance. That's where I'm thinking it goes, man.
I love that booking, actually. I truly do love that booking. Sell the beat down, and then Brother comes back to say, what did you do? And just mess with KO's mind. So maybe this isn't over. Maybe that is a good way of going about it. And it would play into the nonsensical, but still yet hilarious Looney Tunes.
If this is what we're doing with KO and Sami Zayn anyway, let's just go all in on it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually like that booking, and I didn't mind the match. It didn't, it wasn't anything more than it needed to be, and it was entertaining for what it was. Next contest, those were like the speed and athleticism pickup. As you would imagine, with the folks involved, we have your U.S. champ, Austin Theory. I'm not going to drop Austin from his name. He is Austin Theory versus Mustafa Ali, who, somehow when he returned got both his names. So
he's out of favor, but gets to keep both of his names.
Yeah, after previously having it taken away. Ridiculous, but still pretty good contest between these two, as one might imagine. Chicago apparently is the hometown for Mustafa Ali. I'd forgotten that, and so they were really hot for him. That helps, considering he's probably not as over with the general Raw SmackDown audience. Theory picks up that win.
Yeah, in true WWE fashion, it guaranteed Ali a loss in his hometown.
Oh yeah, you never get over in your hometown. He's just like
you sure do not in WWE. That does not happen.
There was a spectacular springboard Spanish fly that Austin Theory pulled off. He is truly one of the most athletic guys on the entire roster in all of wrestling, really. And he showed that with that springboard reverse Spanish fly from the top rope, for lack of what that move would actually be called. And of course, not to be outdone, Mustafa Ali did a very innovative springboard DDT that I hadn't seen quite pulled off in that fashion before. Doug, I loved this match. I thought, though, it was not designed to be a scene stiller. It took maybe if it had 5 more minutes, it could have got there. 10 more minutes. It needed a little more time, but what was there was tantalizing to say, let's maybe see some more of that.
Yeah, maybe we see some more. I don't know. Are we seeing a feud that's going to continue here?
I don't know. I think that I would like to see them work together again and get a maybe a longer period of time to build the feud. So maybe that is step one in the feud, and if so, I'm perfectly fine with that. And Doug, I realized I got my notes turned around, so that match was the next to last match. So I'm out of order.
I think we missed the House of Purple match, didn't we?
So let's go back. Actually, we missed 2 matches. You're conveniently forgetting Happy Corbin's match, as you love to do. I know that it wasn't intentional, but I know why your subconscious would lead you in that.
No, we just got House of Purple in the main event. That's it. We're done.
So yes, I will backtrack. So sorry for getting us out of order there, folks. But we have a 6-man where the team named after a former WWE pay-per-view took on the Bullet Club plus Liv.
That is the best description of this match.
It is what it is, isn't
it? 2 former leaders of the Bullet Club and Liv.
I mean, and I love Liv. It started out with good action from the women. It sort of slowed down a bit when Edge, I think, sort of intentionally slowed the pace down to sort of a methodical crawl, the heel beat down. And then, of course, once AJ gets involved and it's AJ Edge, that's when it started to pick up there. Even this many years in, Doug, that phenomenal forearm still just gets me all excited every time I see AJ spring off that rope. That just looked great, as always.
It always looks great, man. Edge has some of the best facials in the business too. I love the maniacal, just like insane cult leader. No Bray Wyatt, but insane cult leader that he has going on with him now. I mean, this match was great. I mean, it just fell into place. At the end of the day, though, I'm still thinking this could have been Raw.
Maybe it could have been a Raw main event because it was good. It was
good. I'm not taking
no real stakes.
I mean, that's kind of like the through line for me through this entire pay per view. A lot of this was, like I say, passable. What we expected. If you went in expecting certain things, I mean, like Omos, like you say, tearing down the house, you're not going to get that. But if your expectations are realistic, this was that. Except for that main event, though.
I mean, yes, everybody in this match is good to great. And so you got a really good match that just didn't have a ton of stakes because it's a 6-man, and we should say that there was some really cool spots, as you would expect. Finn countering Edge's spear into that cradle looked really tight and really good. I also thought it was a creative finish to have Rhea not really do much, but just takes a minute to distract someone's attention. And then you can get, turn the tide, and which is what happened.
Break that momentum.
That momentum. And so, the new faction, of course, needs the win more than a makeshift team. So the right people were booked to win this one as well, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And now, Doug, your highlight of the night, Madcap Moss.
When are we dropping the Madcap? Can we just call this guy Moss? I mean, come on. We got the repackage. He exits from not an elevator, an ambulance, or maybe it's an ambulance in an elevator. I don't know. It's all Madcap. No, it should just be Moss.
But here's the thing, man. Direction, because at SmackDown he did say that he started that fiery promo about how Happy wanted to bury Madcap, and he's done it. And he killed off Madcap, and I thought, okay, now he's going to say I am Riddick Moss, and then he didn't. He just kept Madcap.
He didn't.
Vince wouldn't let him, I guess. But this was no holds barred. So you talked about stipulations. This one did have that stipulation.
So no holds barred confuses me because isn't it just a no DQ match? I mean,
honestly, if you would have told me this one was a chairs match, I would believe it because I know we got TLC and things still to come in the WWE calendar year, but there was a lot of use of chairs in this one, including a really unique chair shot. The whole Madcap throwing an actual office chair into Baron's face. I'm like, that's an interesting way to take a chair shot. And then
I loved it because I noticed that even on the replay, it was a very safety first throw because all the cushioning was thrown at him in a way where he could catch it and still sell it. He'd been hit with a chair.
But and it still looked good.
I did think that was pretty innovative.
It did look good, and I thought he also took a pretty brutal shot when he went face down into the corner at the chair that was propped up in the corner, the actual more wrestling centric folding chair that we're used to.
So that was one of those almost blink and you'll miss it because did they botch that the first time through? Because it looked like, or was it an intentional swing around and come back in? Because watching it, Corbin's heading for it, goes out of the ring, shoots right back into the ring, and then it looks like they just kind of replay it again. Although if it was a botch, Corbin sold it very well that, it was just a hustle to get back in there and get at that darn Madcap or whatever. And he still got his comeuppance by, smacking into that chair in the corner of the ring.
Well, and then, of course, you have a chair come into the finish as well. So it really was a chair match as much as anything. I would say it was a TLC match, but it wasn't just because credit where it's due, and I don't give Happy Corbin a lot of credit. As bad as this crowd wanted tables, he fed into that, teased the table, and then, of course, no, I'm not giving you what you want.
This crowd really wanted tables, but
they wanted
you know,
tables.
got to give a shout out to the camera crew too, and the guy in the director's chair and whoever, you know, whoever was in the truck, because that finish would not have worked without the proper camera angles and the way it was shot and those quick edits and doing it live. Because clearly Madcap did not bring down one of those big giant steel, you know, stairs on the actual chair.
Which was, it should be mentioned, a true literal comeuppance, in that's exactly what Baron had done to Happy Corbin, or to Madcap rather. And so, you know, they played that into the finish. I will also say I actually really dug that really cool looking fall away slam into the propped up stairs that was in the corner. That was a lot of strength, and that was a good bump.
So we are talking way too much about this match, but
my last note, Doug, is actually surprisingly good. I mean, I know that we don't need to see this again. I'm not necessarily a fan of either man involved, but it was much better than I expected. It was definitely the best one of these they've had. I'm ready for it to be over, but it was actually pretty good.
Because that fall away slam was also on my mind, because I'm thinking just an inch lower and Corbin's spine is right in the point of those, you know, on that fall away. But yeah, I mean, it's over now.
Do you think though that it was actually better than Madcap Moss Happy Corbin match had any reasons to be expectations
I really
going in?
Corbin when he was Baron Corbin, and he was like the biker Goldberg of NXT way back in the day.
Yeah, I did too.
In the black and gold, where he'd come out and destroy people with his deep six in, like, you know, under a minute. Thought that was great. You know, never really had a problem with Riddick Moss. It's more the characters I have issues with at this point.
Well, let's talk about that for a second before we move on, because I actually enjoyed the match and did not anticipate it. I don't enjoy the feud or the characters, to your point. But now that we are hopefully done with the feud and the match was pretty good, do you think there's a future for a Madcap to become a Riddick Moss, or just at least take a more serious approach to the character regardless of the name, and maybe have something there? Because he did show, I mean,
absolutely,
some stuff in this match.
He did show, and you know, he's had this, you know, veteran essentially put him over. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe I mean, hey, the suspenders are gone. That's a win for me, man.
The jokes are gone, which is a win for all of us.
Right.
And to be fair, Baron can, you know, carry his weight when need be. Like you said, it's more the character as much as anything. And he's probably defined at this point, for better or worse, as that sort of gatekeeper, mid-card, upper mid-card heel that you can get a program out of. He's never going to be main event, but he's also Teflon as far as, like, he's going to stay in that same spot. It's not like he goes down the card. So probably right booking too, if you do see anything at all and wanting to do anything with Moss, I think it was the right outcome.
And again, we're talking way too much about this, but I have to totally agree, because I was also thinking that about Corbin during the match, that, you know, I think he's comfortable, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think he's comfortable where he is, knows his role, to quote the Rock, you know, and is good there. And I would prefer a different character for him, but
you get what you get.
This is what you get. Yeah.
Oh, well, Doug, we're at a pretty crisp 23 minutes, so that gives us some time here. I know we got out of order. The next match was the U.S. Championship match, which we already discussed earlier. Pretty good contest, a little too short. Theory goes over, which takes us to our main event and gives us some time here to really talk about this main event. It's Cody versus Seth Rollins 3, this time in Hell in a Cell. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is a pay-per-view that did not have a Universal or WWE title match. Now that we have one champion, Roman was barely even mentioned tonight, nor was the Bloodline. So this match, you know, when was the last time that we saw no world title on the men's side at stake and a non-title match in the main event slot? I have said before, I don't like Hell in a Cell pay-per-views that, you know, it's time for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, so here we go. That being said, I don't like it because it should be protected, and it's a gimmick match that is supposed to be one of the ultimate WWE matches, and it should only be used when it's time for a feud to go there, and not just because it's a certain day on a calendar. This, however, just coincides to me perfectly. This is the spot in their feud when a Hell in a Cell match actually makes sense.
It's appropriate, and it's very old school booking for me, where you don't have two folks fighting over a belt.
Yes.
Two dudes, grown ass men fighting over some gold on some leather. You have it's what's essentially a blood feud, an old school territory blood feud here.
A great way to describe that, because if there's ever a time, this won't maybe work every single month, but if there was a time for the experiment of let's get Roman off the road and off of a pay-per-view, see how it goes, this is a natural. This would have to be the main event. They couldn't have put anybody rushed into a program with Roman that would have been more important than these two men settling what is become a really personal, violent feud in a Hell in a Cell. Much like, back in the day, this would have been done in a cage at the Omni, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm perfectly fine for honestly, as much as we love our tribal chief and the bloodline angle here, giving them a month off. I don't think the pay-per-view suffered because of their lack of appearance. I think that this was the perfect match to put on in its spot.
And this worked. And I don't know if you'd heard any rumblings about Cody going into the pay-per-view, or if you're going in blind.
Once they started talking about it in the pre-show was my first, and I started looking it up, and the injury, Doug, appears to be real. Meltzer reported it as a real injury, and they didn't shy away from it. They played it up into the pre-show, and so in some ways, I thought maybe they were lowering our expectations about what Cody might be capable of. But that robe comes off, and dude, I don't know if they actually gimmicked that thing in here or not, but one way or the other, it looked really ugly.
That's me. I don't know if that was gimmick, because I heard earlier in the day that I guess that's like a legit training injury too. That wasn't even an in-ring injury.
Pec tear, which lifting weights, you tear your pec. Apparently, if it is legit, it usually will require either a long, lengthy rehab or surgery to reattach, and or both.
Yeah.
Yep. And months out, and yet he still went through not just a match, but a Hell in a Cell main event match.
And Cody is old school. I mean, like we're talking about, that would have been a main event at the Omni. Cody's old school. There was a point where I was thinking, Cody is old school. MJF is old school. I mean, what MJF did on Double or Nothing last weekend, where he just totally lets Wardlow run over him. It was almost like, a guy leaving the territory, passing the torch kind of thing. Which wasn't, but we're not going to get to talk about that tonight. But I was thinking, okay, that looks pretty bad. I'm hitting up Dr. Google and consulting Dr. Google to see what kind of recovery time that is. We're talking 4 to 6 months recovery if it's a bad tear, and it sure looks like a bad tear. I mean, when it is actually into the arm and all the whole pec region, that looks bad to me. And I'm thinking, okay, Cody goes out. Cody's old school. He is going to put Seth Rollins over here, and then he's just going to lay low for months on end.
Yeah, not the way anything went at all. I love Seth Rollins playing the mind games. Cody's robe comes off, and you see the horrible injury, and everybody oohs and ahs. Seth comes out, and your immediate reaction is, "Oh my God, he's wearing polka dots," which was great. And they didn't shy away from it, man. It's not like, I thought, are they going to be limited in this match any? They really played into the injury. There was some really brutal kendo shot work by Seth on Cody. The weight belt was also used viciously on that injury. You have to say that there were times in this match where I could see maybe they were working around the injury by giving us like some smoke and mirrors. They introduced the bull rope gimmick which, but it worked because these guys can work old school where they can work around Cody's limitations. There were times where Cody was just taking a beating for the sake of the match, and times where Seth Rollins was honestly wrestling himself.
Yes.
I mean, he was bumping and going through table. I mean, he was, like they used to say about Ric Flair could go out there and wrestle a broom. There were times where Cody just took it and Seth was just kind of wrestling himself, and it all worked beautifully because these guys know
so
how
well.
to wrestle.
So well. I was texting my nephew throughout that match, and at the end of it, I said the same thing to him that I said to you right before we went live. Tony Khan should have paid. Tony should have paid Cody whatever he was asking for because the dude is clearly worth it.
Money. He's money, man. Although there was a point in a match where, like, the Chicago crowd started to go AEW on Cody, and I thought, is this the point where but then the Cody chant started coming in louder and kind of drowned it out. It'll be interesting to go forward to see if that was just a smart mark kind of reaction from
Well, I mean, it is a Chicago crowd, and I mean, it's CM Punk's backyard. So
exactly, that probably is what's at play. It's probably worth following, though. I thought it was interesting. It was definitely loud and vocal, but then got drowned out again. Crowd hot all night, adding to this. Love that buckle bomb through the table, man. That was really vicious looking. The Rhodes pedigree was a very believable near fall.
I love the teases with the hammer and the pedigrees.
Yeah, all the teases and things are things that you can do without hurting the man's pec further, but they had the crowd, they had us all at the edge of our seats because they were doing the psychology part of wrestling.
Exactly. That's it. These dudes are doing a master's class in wrestling psychology to work around like this horrifying looking injury that the man has.
The sledgehammer was snug. That was the actual finish. Cody goes over in this one. Now is 3-0. I really thought, like you, knowing that the man was maybe facing some time off,
right?
It seemed like it's the time to give Seth his win back. And you'd have the out of, I'm still up 2-1, and you got me when I am one-armed.
Right.
But they didn't go that way at all.
Not at all.
Which is, a big sell of Cody Rhodes. It's going to be a shame, though, if you put him over this hard and then can't do anything with him for 5 months or so.
And so I wonder, because we're not clinical, we're seeing what everybody else is seeing. Maybe medical professionals, if this was a tear that would require surgery, would say you can't go out there, you need to stop, you're going to do further damage. Maybe it's I don't know if it's a thing, but maybe this is a minor tear that just looks terrible. I mean, yeah, I have seen injuries like that look so much worse than what they actually are.
Or it could be a shoot where he did hurt himself, and then they gimmicked up something that was bad to look even worse.
And he just works through this. Maybe he rehabs this and works through this, through the next, 3-4 weeks or whatever, maybe a month or so, keep him on TV. I'm not really sure where this goes, but, my nephew has this great theory that works beautifully is we take him off TV now, let him get his surgery, let him heal, and then bring him back at Rumble.
I mean, the crowd will be hot for him whenever he would come back, if he leaves our TV screens at all. I know he was considered possibly the next big opponent for Roman Reigns. Maybe SummerSlam would be too soon, but you need a big match for Roman, and he doesn't have a natural one right now. Obviously, if Cody is legit like hurt and is not a minor tear and is a major tear requiring surgery, they're going to have to go a different direction.
Absolutely.
For SummerSlam. I don't know where that is. That's really only a month and a half.
Madcap. That's where it goes, dude.
We did put Madcap over hard earlier in the two.
Completely accidentally, but we did.
How about Seth? I mean, I know obviously Seth's a made man, so this doesn't necessarily take anything away from Seth. It is surprising, though, that with an injury to Cody Rhodes, he didn't get a victory here. Do we have a fourth in this series? Or presuming obviously that Cody doesn't need time off, where does Seth go from here? More with Cody, or do we let this spiral him into some sort of self-doubt storyline where he goes somewhere else?
A self-doubt storyline would be good because Seth's got to go somewhere from here. I mean, and where does he go? I mean, I love his mad villainy in
Yeah.
here. But maybe we have some self-doubt here. Maybe maybe this is a fork in the road for Seth.
Yeah, it may be. There definitely no obvious path for either man moving forward. One due to injury, maybe stopping his potential program with the world champion, and the other coming off 3 very decisive losses. Not real much in the way of shenanigans. These were just straight up 1, 2, 3s, and in this case, with the odds definitely stacked against Cody Rhodes. So how they rebuild Seth after making him so obvious the inferior, in this feud to Cody Rhodes will be worth watching. They have to be careful with that because I know that they still want him in the main event or near the main event somewhere. I know obviously he's strong enough of a character to get himself over regardless of the situation, but they need to give him something good to sink his teeth into so that he can really recover from just being knocked around in this feud.
Yeah, really, if we think about it, I guess Seth's entire job since WrestleMania has been to put Cody over and put Cody over hard, and he has consistently done that.
Yeah.
To make Cody be the big deal that he is going to be after being plucked from AEW. Not really plucked. I mean, he walked out without the contract and walked back to WWE after 6 years.
Yeah.
But Cody's a big deal, and he's going to be a big deal in WWE.
And he needs to be a big deal if he's going to take on Roman Reigns because after Lesnar, there's nobody really that's a big enough deal for that role.
And really, you put him over even more by having him defeat Seth Rollins like this tonight.
Yep.
And, a former show member, yeah. But I just wish I was as good at my job as Seth Rollins is. It is.
You are, Doug. You are. Don't doubt yourself, my friend. Seth Rollins lost all 3 of his last matches. You don't lose all your matches, just most of them.
Just most of them.
Most of your battles in daily life are losses. Not all of them. Oh, man. And with that, Doug, that was, again, you said it right at the get-go. It was a nice, crisp show. Yeah. If you are short on time, the most meaningful thing to watch is that main event. It definitely exceeded expectations, which were probably already high, but lowered when you find out about the injury. And they still outdid any expectation you might have.
And apparently, just talking through it, Kevin and I both realized you might need to go back and watch that Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin match.
Only to be pleasantly surprised. It was definitely the best in the series, and I like the women's contest to begin with, but there's the rest of it was definitely good raw content for the most part.
Yeah.
But so nothing offensive, but nothing worth going out of your way for, except for the things we noted there. And Doug, with that, we got a week off next week, so we're taking. I
love summer.
We have a break next week, and then a much longer summer break coming, where we will be off for several weeks in a row. But in between, we are coming back for one more show in June before the extended summer break, and it is a big one because for the first time ever, Doug, we are going to do a double preview. We are getting everyone ready before our absence for the pay-per-views that will be upcoming throughout the end of June through the 4th of July holiday, because you know how they like to stack these pay-per-views back to back. We got New Japan and AEW presenting Forbidden Door. We will preview that the very following week on a Saturday of 4th of July weekend. WWE will be presenting Money in the Bank, their next pay-per-view. So we're going to get you ready for both of those in one mega preview show, and that is 2 weeks from tonight at our regular time of 8 o'clock.
So we're doing a super show of our own.
We are doing a super show with 3 promotions. 3 promotions previewed in one night.
Look at us doing a super card with multiple promotions.
Hey, we're getting ready to take 3 or 4 weeks off after that, so we've got to work doubly hard for this one.
Summer.
Doug noticeably did not commit to working harder. He just sighed.
I just want to be as good at my job as Seth Rollins is at his.
We're going to work on that during our off time, folks, and we'll let you know how it goes for Doug.
Or at least as dedicated to my job as Cody is to his.
Yeah, definitely showed it tonight. Worth seeing, folks. And we will miss you next week, but please join us again in 2 weeks. Let us know in the comments what you think, what you thought of tonight's show, what you thought of our recap of where we were right or wrong. Join us again in 2 weeks. We'd appreciate it. Until then.
Good night, everybody. And don't forget, if you're new here, hit that like, hit that subscribe.
Night, everyone.
Night.